In 1960, two men climbed into a metal sphere the size of a small car. They sealed the hatch behind them, and they sank for 4 hours and 47 minutes. They descended, down through water so dark it absorbed their lights, down through pressure so extreme that the sphere's porthole cracked during the descent, a crack they could only hope would hold. They reached the bottom, 10,916 meters below the surface of the Pacific Ocean, almost 11 kilometers straight down, the deepest point ever reached by human beings. And what did they find at the bottom of the world? A flatfish, swimming calmly in the sediment, a living creature, at a depth where the pressure was 1,086 times greater than at the surface, at a depth where no light had ever reached, where the temperature was barely above freezing, where no scientist had believed complex life could survive. Samandark sab se jer hisan min jo mila, wo normal naida. That was 1960. In the decades since, as technology has allowed us to return, each new expedition to the deep ocean has found something that nobody expected, something that quietly rewrites what we thought we knew about this planet. Today, we descend, level by level, into the deepest explored point on Earth, and we discover what is waiting at the bottom, the western Pacific Ocean, east of the Mariana Islands, 1,500 miles east of the Philippines. Here, the floor of the ocean is not flat. Here, the ocean floor drops away into a trench, a scar in the Earth's crust so deep, so vast, so ancient that if you placed Mount Everest at the bottom, the peak would still be more than a mile underwater. The Mariana Trench, 2,550 kilometers long, 69 kilometers wide at its broadest point, and at its deepest, the Challenger Deep, 10,935 meters below the surface, 8 tons of force per square inch. At the bottom of the Mariana Trench, where water has been sitting undisturbed for 180 million years. The trench was first sounded, measured, in 1875 by the HMS Challenger. During the first dedicated ocean science expedition in history, the crew dropped a weighted rope over the side and measured how far it fell before hitting the bottom. They measured 8,184 meters. They knew they were over something extraordinary. They could not have known how extraordinary. It would take another 85 years before anyone tried to go down and see it. January 23, 1960. The bathyscaphe Trieste, a vessel designed by Swiss physicist Auguste Piccard, father of Jacques, and funded by the United States Navy. Jacques Piccard, 37 years old, the son of the man who designed this vessel. Don Walsh, 28 years old, United States Navy lieutenant. They climbed in, sealed the hatch, and began to sink. The Trieste was not a submarine in any conventional sense. It was a steel sphere, 2.16 meters in diameter, attached beneath a float filled with aviation gasoline for buoyancy. The passenger sphere walls were 12.7 centimeters of steel, thick enough to resist the pressure if the calculations were correct. A crack. At 9,000 meters, they heard it. They felt the vessel shudder. They checked the instruments, and they kept going down. 2 hours later, they reached the bottom. Piccard described it. The sediment disturbed by the arrival of the Trieste, billowing up in slow clouds around the porthole, the headlights illuminating a small circle of the ocean floor. And then, movement. A flatfish, approximately 30 centimeters long, lying on the sediment, then slowly moving away from the light. At the deepest point on Earth, they found a fish, not a microbe, not a bacterium, a fish with fins and eyes, swimming calmly in the place where nothing was supposed to live. Scientists later debated whether the creature Piccard observed was actually a sea cucumber, not a fish, since the ID was made through a thick porthole in disturbed sediment. It does not matter. Whatever it was alive, complex, mobile, at 10,916 meters, at 186 atmospheres of pressure. March 26, 2012. James Cameron, filmmaker, director of Titanic and Avatar, climbs alone into a custom-built submersible called Deepsea Challenger. He descends for 2 hours and 37 minutes. He reaches the bottom of the Challenger Deep. He becomes the third human being in history to reach this point, and the first to do it alone. Cameron spent approximately 3 hours on the ocean floor, 3 times longer than Piccard and Walsh. With modern cameras, modern lights, modern sensors, he had expected a riot of strange life. The ocean floor at shallower depths, even 1,000 meters, teems with bizarre organisms, anglerfish, giant squid, bioluminescent jellyfish, life in extraordinary variety and strangeness. At 10,916 meters, he found almost nothing, desolate to the eye, teeming in the sediment. Every cubic centimeter of Challenger deep sediment, sediment that looks like bare beige mud, contains thousands of microbial species, many of them not found anywhere else on Earth, many of them representing entirely new branches of the tree of life. The deepest point on Earth looks empty. It is not empty. It is invisibly, microscopically, extraordinarily alive. And some of what is alive down there is producing chemistry that human biology has never encountered. Let us talk about pressure. At sea level -1 atmosphere of pressure, the human body functions normally. At 10 atmospheres to 100 meters depth, the pressure begins to cause nitrogen narcosis in divers, confusion, hallucination, death without specialized equipment. At 100 atmospheres to 1,000 meters, most fish cannot survive. Their swim bladders collapse. Their cells cannot maintain structural integrity against the crushing force. At 1,086 atmospheres, the Challenger deep, nothing should survive with a body cavity. Nothing should maintain cell structure. Nothing complex should be alive. And yet, a fish, transparent, gelatinous, pink-white, feeding calmly at 8,076 meters, its cells chemically adapted to pressure that would kill every other vertebrate on Earth. The snailfish is the deepest fish ever recorded, but it is not the only thing living in the trench. Giant amphipods, crustaceans resembling large shrimp, some reaching 34 centimeters in length, have been found throughout the trench. They are scavengers. They arrive in swarms when bait is deployed, dozens of them, feeding in complete darkness at pressures that should have crushed them. Sea cucumbers, polychaete worms, foraminifera with shells made of sand grains cemented together, xenophyophores, single-celled organisms that can reach 20 centimeters in diameter, the largest individual cells on Earth, living on the Challenger deep floor, a single cell, 20 centimeters wide, living at 11 kilometers depth. Scientists still don't fully understand the full extent of biodiversity in the Mariana Trench. Less than 1% of the trench floor has been directly observed. We have seen a tiny fraction of what lives down there. 2017. Newcastle University. A team led by Dr. Alan Jameson deploys landers to the Mariana Trench and the Kermadec Trench, near New Zealand, both among the deepest points in the ocean. They are studying the amphipods, the giant shrimp-like crustaceans living at extreme depth. They collect specimens, they bring them to the surface, they begin chemical analysis, and they find something that stops the analysis. 0.50 times more polluted than crustaceans in heavily polluted Chinese rivers, at 11 kilometers depth. In a place where no human has ever been except in a sealed metal sphere. The PCBs entered the ocean decades ago. They sank, slowly, through the water column, accumulating in organic matter, being eaten by organisms at each level, concentrating further with each step of the food chain until they reach the bottom. And the creatures at the bottom, which eat everything that sinks from above, had accumulated them for decades. Banned chemicals from the 1970s, sitting in the bodies of animals at the deepest point on Earth, in concentrations that exceed the most polluted places on the surface. And alongside the PCBs, plastic. In 2018, a single-use plastic bag was photographed on the floor of the Mariana Trench. At 10,898 meters depth, a plastic bag, the deepest piece of plastic ever found, in the most remote location on the surface of this planet, placed there indirectly by human hands. July 2024. A study published in the journal Nature Geoscience. Lead author Andrew Sweetman of the Scottish Association for Marine Science. The finding: oxygen is being produced on the deep ocean floor. At 4,000 meters depth, in complete darkness, without photosynthesis. Without the sun. For the entirety of scientific history, Since the discovery of photosynthesis in the 18th century, we have believed that oxygen production on Earth required light, that all the oxygen in our atmosphere and all the oxygen dissolved in our oceans ultimately traced back to photosynthetic organisms converting sunlight to chemical energy and releasing oxygen as a byproduct. This discovery, if confirmed, breaks that model. Potato-sized metal rocks on the ocean floor that at 4,000 meters depth, splitting water, releasing oxygen without sunlight. If this process is confirmed, and the independent verification is still ongoing, it means that oxygen can be produced geologically, without biology, without light, which means that on other planets, on moons with liquid water oceans beneath their ice, on worlds far from any star, oxygen could be building up in the water, without a sun, without photosynthesis, through chemistry alone. Scientists have long used the presence of oxygen as a biosignature, a sign of life when analyzing other planets' atmospheres. Dark oxygen suggests that oxygen can exist without life, and that life, if it exists elsewhere, may not need a star to sustain it. One discovery on the deep ocean floor, one unexpected measurement, and the framework we use to search for life in the universe may need to be rebuilt. The floor of the Mariana Trench is not solid ground. It is moving. The Pacific Plate, the largest tectonic plate on Earth, is sliding beneath the Mariana Plate at a rate of approximately 2.5 centimeters per year, slowly, continuously, inevitably. The Pacific Plate is descending into the Earth, and as it goes, it takes the ocean floor with it, everything that has settled on the ocean floor in this region: sediment, organisms, chemical compounds, plastic, PCBs. The bodies of every creature that has ever lived in the Mariana Trench is being slowly carried down into the Earth's mantle, ancient ocean water, released from volcanoes, millions of years after it sank into the trench. The ocean is not separate from the Earth's interior. It is in communication with it. What goes into the trench eventually comes back out, changed, transformed, released through volcanoes on the other side of the planet. Millions of years later, the plastic bag at the bottom of the Mariana Trench is being carried, right now, into the Earth's interior. In 100 million years, some trace of it may emerge from a volcano somewhere, a record of human civilization, preserved in the Earth itself. Scientists still don't fully understand the complete chemical transformation that occurs when ocean floor material is subducted into the mantle. The full cycle of ocean to mantle to surface chemistry is one of the largest unsolved problems in Earth science. 7 levels, a trench 11 kilometers deep, older than the dinosaurs. 2 men in a metal sphere who heard it crack and kept descending. A filmmaker who found a desert that turned out to contain thousands of undiscovered species. In every handful of mud, transparent fish feeding calmly at depths that kill everything else. Their cells chemically modified to survive where nothing should. Industrial chemicals from the 1970s in the bodies of creatures at the deepest point on Earth, more concentrated than in polluted rivers. Rocks on the ocean floor producing oxygen without sunlight, rewriting the search for life in the universe, and an ocean floor moving slowly into the Earth, carrying everything with it, plastic, bags and ancient organisms alike, into the mantle, to be released millions of years from now from volcanoes we have not yet named. We think of the deep ocean as remote. As separate. As a place that has nothing to do with us. But the deep ocean contains our pollution at 50 times the concentration of our most polluted rivers. It is producing oxygen by a mechanism we did not know existed. It is carrying the physical evidence of our civilization into the Earth's interior. The deep ocean is not separate from us. It is a mirror. It shows us what the planet was before we arrived, in its ancient sediments, its unique biology, its extraordinary chemistry, and it shows us what we have done since, in the PCBs and the amphipods, in the plastic bag on the seafloor, in the compounds accumulating in creatures that have never seen the surface. We have explored less than 20% of the ocean floor. In that 20%, we found all of this. The remaining 80% is waiting, darker, deeper, more patient than we are, holding things we have not imagined yet, holding, things we have already put there, without knowing if this changed how you see the ocean. Hit like, subscribe to AxiomVoid for weekly dives into the discoveries that are still being processed. Drop a comment. Which level disturbed you most? The life at 11 kilometers? The pollution? The dark oxygen? Or the plastic bag? Stay curious. Keep going deeper. See you in the next one.